All right, let's try that again. I think I'm rolling now. So thanks for bearing with me while I'm trying to work through some of these technical difficulties. But we're going to get started. First thing I would like to do is I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the Treaty 6 territories, traditional lands of the First Nations and the Métis people. I want to thank everybody that's joined in for this presentation today. This is a very exciting day for us. Today marks the go live date of the Vanessa's law as far as mandatory reporting goes with regards to adverse drug reactions and medical device incident reporting. So as part of that, we wanted to present you a Webex here with some educational material. It's going to be in part with myself as well as the members from Health Canada. All right. Sorry, apparently I muted myself accidentally here. Let's try this again. I'm Mark Lochner. I'm quality improvement specialist with the Saskatchewan Health Authority. I'm one of the working group members of the Vanessa's Law Education and Reporting working groups. And so we've been working tirelessly for the past couple months, really trying to get this finished and put together and getting everything ready for the rollout today. And I'll let Paul introduce himself.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me? Mark, can you hear me? I'm not sure if you.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Great. Thank you. This is Paul Litowitz from Health Canada. I'm a manager in the Marketed Health Products Directorate at Health Canada, and I'm the manager of the Regional Canada Vigilance Program. And we've been working here as part of a team on the implementation of mandatory reporting by hospitals from the Health Canada side. So very much appreciate your invitation today and the opportunity to discuss this with everyone as well. So thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you, Paul. So today's objectives, we just want to be able to provide you with more information about the mandatory reporting of serious adverse drug reactions and medical device incidents by hospital regulations, outreach, education, feedback activities, specifically for the SHA, physician and staff roles and responsibilities with regards to identifying and reporting, as well as the reporting structure and process that we have currently going on and what we hope to achieve in the future. With this, I'll let Paul take it away for the Health Canada components of the presentation.
Thanks, Mark. So on the first slide, health product vigilance. So this is just a diagram that's attempting to speak to health product vigilance a little bit, and which is, of course, the science and activities related to the detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse events or other drug-related problems. As we know, when a company wants to place their drug product on the Canadian market, their products have to undergo clinical trials, and so that pharmacovigilance circular description follows. You can see the submission review, the monitoring, prevention, pre and post-market that's happening, but ultimately health product vigilance is concerned with identifying the hazards associated with health products and minimizing the risk of any harm that may come to patients. So here in Canada, market authorization holders or manufacturers must conduct comprehensive safety and pharmacovigilance work to comply with the food and drug as well as the medical device regulations. On the next slide, so this is speaking a little bit to clinical trial versus real world evidence. And of course, while clinical trials are an important part of the pre-market assessment of therapeutic products, real-world effects continue to be uncovered once products in use and authorized for the broader population. So as you all know, people can react differently to the same therapeutic product due to genetic variations, environment, lifestyle factors, age, and the presence of, one or more diseases or illnesses. In reality, the market for a drug includes many patients, some who have multiple medical conditions and take a variety of medications for a prolonged period, and could be ineligible to participate in pre-market testing from the pharmaceutical companies, for example. Special populations often are not included in clinical trials. The short period for clinical trials is also an issue. The span of actual clinical trials is too brief a time to identify some of the events that may come after prolonged exposure to a medication. So pre-market tests don't include real-world examples always of the drug's usage. So really through post-market reporting, we can identify emerging safety problems and conduct further investigations and assess harms and benefits on an ongoing basis of a drug or medical device. So on the next slide, we're starting to get into the protecting Canadians from, actually this is Vanessa. So this is speaking to Vanessa's law. Vanessa Young died in 2000 of a cardiac arrhythmia after being prescribed cisapride. Her father, an MP, Terrence Young, embarked on a campaign for increased regulation of therapeutic products, which resulted in greater powers for Health Canada to request data from hospitals and industry about medications and devices. On the next slide, so Vanessa's law is what many of us know the name of this legislation, but it's actually called the Protecting Canadians from Unsafe Drugs Act, and it amended the Food and Drug Act when it was put into royal assent in 2014 with a number of authorities. So this slide and the next several slides, I'm going to attempt to summarize a bit more quickly. This slide acknowledges the new act, which amended the Food and Drugs Act to improve Health Canada's ability to collect post-market safety and take appropriate action when a serious risk to health is identified. And on the slide, you can see some of the powers it brought into the Food and Drugs Act. Of course, we're speaking today about that one at the bottom, number 6. So on the next slide, so this is just acknowledging a few of the ways that Health Canada is committed to improving reporting of adverse drug reaction and medical device problem reporting in Canada to quickly identify safety issues and share safety information with Canadians and health professionals. So maybe, Mark, we could jump to the next slide. And this is intended to try to communicate that, of course, we're aware of the issue with underreporting. The 1 to 10%. Various sources suggest that underreporting is not just a Canadian but a global issue. And so the way that we've looked at this is a multi-pronged approach. So in addition to the regulations, Health Canada is committed to supporting also with outreach and education and meaningful feedback, along with the work that you're doing to improve reporting and in the end ultimately have better timely information for regulatory actions and of course improve patient and product safety. On the next slide, this is just a little bit of background around the consultations of the regulatory process for mandatory reporting. All of these documents are available online that are noted here. A couple points just along the way during the consultations. Some hospitals expressed concerns around operational impacts that mandatory reporting might have, such as limited amount of resources, time limitations, lack of familiarity with reporting procedures. But in general, most stakeholders were supportive of the overall intent of the regulations to improve the safety of therapeutic products in Canada. On the next slide, so this is a little bit about the why. This slide speaks to a few of the reasons mandatory reporting is important. We talked about the estimates of international studies that estimate reporting to be as low as 1 to 10%, and there's no evidence to suggest Canadian reporting rates are any higher. the underreporting of important therapeutic product information is a concern to Health Canada, as it reduces our ability to identify at an early stage potential safety problems to take action and prevent harm to patients. Why hospitals? Why did the regulations specify hospitals? Well, they're uniquely positioned to identify serious adverse drug reactions and medical device incidents with what's happening in your facilities. Reports are often the first sign of emerging safety problems, which of course supports regulatory actions such as the issuance of health products advisories or changes to product safety information like the Canadian product monograph or products instructions for use, or even a recall or withdrawal of the product from the market. On the next slide, we're starting to get into the what, and we'll speak a little bit more about details in just a moment, but we wanted to flag that hospitals are required to report certain information about serious adverse drug reactions and medical device incidents if the information is in control of the hospital. The information included would be the name of the hospital. So from the regulations, the name of the hospital, the contact information for a representative of the hospital, identifying information for the drug or medical device, a description of the event, and in the case of a serious adverse drug reaction, the age and sex of the patient. So information that's in the control of the hospital is information that would reasonably be accessible within your hospital. I note that there's no requirement to do further investigation in order to obtain pieces of information. So let's get into the details a little bit more, and I know Mark's going to get more into some examples in more detail, but with regards to hospitals are defined as facilities that are licensed, approved, or designated as a hospital by a province or territory in accordance of the laws of the province or territory to provide care or treatment to persons suffering from any form of disease or illness, or is operated by the Government of Canada and provides health services to inpatients. Just another note that the mandatory reporting requirement applies to the hospital rather than individual healthcare professionals working in the hospital. It's the hospital that's responsible for determining clear internal roles and responsibilities for staff and meeting the mandatory reporting obligations. However, healthcare providers, of course, play an important role in identifying and recognizing and documenting the serious ADRs. Yeah, thanks, Mark. So what will have to be reported are all serious adverse drug reactions and medical device incidents. What are those? I know we're going to get more into that in this presentation, but as far as what they are, a serious adverse drug reaction, we've defined that in the regulations as a noxious and unintended response to a drug that occurs at any dose that requires inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization, causes congenital malformation, results in persistent or significant disability or incapacity, or is life-threatening or results in death. And a medical device incident is an incident related to a failure of a medical device or deterioration in its effectiveness or any inadequacy in its labeling or its directions for use that has led to the death or serious deterioration in the state of health of a patient, user, or other person, or could do so were it to recur. So that includes near misses where harm didn't occur, but the potential for serious harm could happen if the event were to recur for medical devices. So on the next slide, some more details about the who, or sorry, this is more details about the when and the scope of products. So hospitals are required to report serious ADRs and MDIs in writing within 30 days of first documentation of the reaction within the hospitals. In scope, pharmaceuticals, biologic drugs, radiopharmaceutical drugs, disinfectants, and medical devices. And then to avoid duplication with pre-existing federal or provincial reporting requirements, these regulations don't apply to, for example, drugs under clinical trials or investigational testing for medical devices, or if a hospital has already submitted a vaccine report to their local unit. So that excluded product list, you can see those are products that are covered by reporting occurs through other regulatory frameworks. So on the next slide, so just a few last points from me. You can see the slide, but I wanted to flag the central objective of the regulations is really to improve the quality and increase the quantity of reports and expand on the real-world evidence that Health Canada is using to monitor safety and effectiveness of therapeutic products, as well as that life cycle approach to the regulation of such products. As mentioned, we're committed to the non-regulatory support for hospitals as well as part of the implementation plan associated with mandatory reporting for serious adverse drug reactions and medical device incidents. You might be aware we've provided guidance that's available online. We're providing outreach, education as well to impacted hospitals and healthcare professionals. We appreciate that the shared commitment that health product safety is for all Canadians. And we're going to ensure our product vigilance system has methods in place to collect and evaluate the data that you're providing. With risk mitigation at the forefront, we're going to continue to communicate any new product information with you and other stakeholders through our resources that are already set up to enable informed decisions. And I just wanted to also mention that more information on how to report and how Health Canada has used this information can be found at canada.ca/drug-device-reporting. That's it at the moment for me, Mark.
Great, thanks so much, Paul. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Paul as well as his colleague Lisa Waldak, who they've been doing a ton of work helping us get ready for this and helping us with some of the legislation and a lot of the education component. So we wouldn't be as far as we are without their help. So we really do appreciate it here at the SHA. For my part, I want to speak a little bit more specifically to how this is going to impact frontline staff and other members of the SHA. And the first thing I want to do is just touch a little bit more on ADRs and MDIs because they may be a little bit different than our standard process right now. And I think it's important to highlight that so that we're not either duplicating work or making misses. So as Paul already stated, a serious adverse drug reaction is something that is serious enough to result in hospitalization, admission, or other long-standing disabilities or death. This is a little bit different than some of the other safety concerns that we have because in some of our current safety reporting processes, we have different thresholds. So I think it's important to capture that this is a pretty high threshold. Although Health Canada does want us reporting anything that we think might be a serious adverse drug reaction, it is important to differentiate it from some of the other near misses and potential harms that we have been currently reporting. So some examples of ADRs is kidney damage from a diuretic that requires dialysis, lung damage from a chemotherapy drug that requires long-term oxygen therapy, or allergic reaction to an antibiotic that is life-threatening. Same with the medical device incidents. Some examples of those are an infusion pump that stops working and did not give an alarm, causing the patient to need to stay longer in hospital. A defibrillator used to treat cardiac arrest that did not work properly. The patient unfortunately was not revived. A prosthetic knee replacement that failed due to damaged material, or a breast implant that was suspected of causing a rare cancer. To help with this understanding a little bit, some great examples were created. So we're going to go through really quickly a couple of them here just to kind of give a better idea of what is and what is not reportable through Vanessa's law and the mandatory reporting. And I'm going to probably mention this a couple of times, but this may be above and beyond what we already are doing for reporting. And in some cases, we will still have to report in some of our standard methods, whether it's to product issue forms, patient safety, staff safety alerts, the way that the different former regions had that set up. We may still have to do that even if it's not Vanessa's law, but if it is Vanessa's law, we may have to do a double reporting, one to Health Canada and one through our normal reporting process. So the first example we have here is a patient's been taking warfarin among other medications, presents to the emergency department with life-threatening GI bleed. The patient requires hospitalization in order to be stabilized. So Based on Vanessa's law, mandatory requirement, this would meet the criteria. It is a life-threatening condition. It did result in inpatient hospitalization, and it was a result of the patient taking the medication as would be normally prescribed. So again, this one may or may not hit the threshold of like a patient safety issue. So again, there's going to be some need to have a review of, yes, this meets Vanessa's law, but do we need to report it through other methods as well? And so that's going to be a bit of a learning process as we move forward. The next example is a patient experiences dizziness and sweating after a dose of insulin. Patient required glucose tablets to recover. It was discovered that short-acting insulin had been provided instead of the usual long-acting insulin. This is not reportable as an ADR because this is a medication incident or a medication error. Now, this is something that we would be flagging through our patient safety alert lines that the province has, because this is something that we do want to address internally. However, this is not something that fits into the criteria of Vanessa's law. So again, this is going to be in addition to some of our current processes, and it's nice to just have an idea that though this may be similar to our old processes, there's definitely going to be a difference moving forward. Another example that is reportable is a patient undergoes endometrial ablation of the uterus. She suffers burns to adjacent organs. These burns were due to a thin uterine wall and were unanticipated side effects of the ablation. The manufacturer failed to change the device label to warn users of this side effect. And so again, because this is an issue concerning the labeling, and because the device was used appropriately, but it did create serious deterioration, this would be reportable. And again, this would likely be reportable again through a patient safety issue, and would also likely be reportable as far as reaching out to vendors and manufacturers and that sort of thing. So there may be potentially 3 reports that need to go out with this, but again, this is something that we need to do with Vanessa's law in addition to the other reporting structures that we have been doing. Another positive is a batch of out-of-specification blood glucose test strips were released by the manufacturer. The patient used the strips according to instructions, but the readings were incorrect values and incorrect insulin dosage was given, resulting in a hypoglycemic shock. So again, the patient took them as they thought was appropriate. However, there was an issue with the product itself. It caused a serious deterioration, therefore reportable. Again, also likely reportable through some other methods as well. Last one we have here is a user performed an inflation test prior to inserting the balloon catheter into a patient, as required in the instructions used for accompanying this device. A malfunction on inflation was detected and another balloon was used. And so, again, this is proper process. This is not something that would be reported to the ministry, or Health Canada, I should say, but this is something that, again, we would be reporting as a patient safety near miss or potential harm. And again, we would want to report it to the manufacturer. So it still meets the criteria for some of our current internal reporting. However, it does not meet the threshold for Health Canada. I feel like this is something that we're going to have to work through over the next few months, is to get a really firm understanding of what is and what is not reportable. And the one thing that's really nice that Health Canada has said many times is that if we suspect it might be, just report it. It's better to report too much than too little. But again, if we have questions moving down, we can always be connected and have conversations about what does meet the criteria and what does not. Now, moving on specifically to how we're going to report these in the SHA. First off, the who. And so, as Paul mentioned, it's the hospital's obligation to report. However, breaking that down, it is the expectation that the first person to notice or document the serious adverse drug reaction, or the MDI, will begin the reporting process. So that is frontline staff, and it could include, but is not limited to, nursing staff, pharmacists, physicians, clinical engineers, material maintenance, whomever is the first one to see that this did link to some sort of patient harm, or in the MDI case, potential patient harm. They will begin the reporting process. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do the report in its entirety, but we do need everyone in the front line to be understanding that it is their job and their responsibility that if they see this, to begin the reporting process. This, again, is very similar to any sort of patient or staff safety, where we encourage you to, if you see something that's unsafe or you notice something, to alert. right? And it's everyone's responsibility for safety, and this is something that we're asking everybody to continue to think about now with this Vanessa's Law mandatory reporting component. So once you notice an ADR or MDI, what we're going to have you do is go onto the intranet, because we have fillable forms online on the intranet that you can click onto either the ADR or the MDI reporting form and follow it through and fill it out and then submit it on, and then you will kind of finish it off on the back end. You can see here I've got links to the two different reports. Again, they will be on the they are currently on the intranet, so that every staff and physician do have access to the intranet on the quality and safety page. We're hoping to get them up on the SHA external website soon. We just need to move through a couple more things before we can get that set up so that patients and family are able to report as well, because again, we want as much reporting as possible. All right, so I was originally going to click on and see if we could run through one, but the fact that I had trouble getting the mic to work, I think we'll just run through some screenshots of what you can see if you do click onto one of these links. So it's going to bring you up to a main page, and the reason I brought this up is so that you can see that this is specific for the serious adverse drug reactions. There's different links and different forms for the two different types of reports. And then I also want to bring attention to the link that's about 2/3 down the page, to a PDF that says mandatory reporting, hospital drug, English. This, if you click on it, will give you a definitions and descriptions page put out by Health Canada for multiple different terms in each section of the report. In case you're not entirely sure what it's asking for, you can refer back to this, and then you'll be able to identify exactly what it is Health Canada is asking as far as the report goes. The next is just a screenshot of what the first page will look like. This is the Health Canada form that we've just implanted into this program. And you may notice that most of the ones on this page have are asterisks and little red lettering. That means that it's mandatory to fill those out prior to being able to move on to the next page in the reporting process. These are mandatory fields that Health Canada needs. So we need as many of these filled out as possible, and if you're not able to fill them out, you will be prompted to go back and fill out something. At this stage, if it's unknown, you can put in unknown. However, we're really asking that you try to fill these out as completely as possible so that it's easier for us on the back end to make sure that the report is complete and to have less follow-up from Health Canada, because we know that if we have to follow up, weeks or months later, it's going to just be that much more difficult. It's best to get the information as soon as possible. As I stated before, but I really want to drive this point home, is that the reporting for Vanessa's Law will be done in parallel with existing safety reporting. It's not going to replace these processes. And so what we are looking at right now is the potential, yes, we might have to do 2 different reports for the same incidents, or sometimes 3, depending. Our future state goal is to have those aligned. We're not there right now, just with the changes in the province. We're trying to align to a single provincial reporting system for patient and staff safety, and then once we're there, we can start to build on that. So that's something that we're hoping to do future state, but right now we will have to have potentially multiple reporting systems. And one thing I want to note, because you may go on to the website and click on for an MDI reporting, and you're going to see that it's a medical device problem form. The reason is because Health Canada wants us to report as much as we can. The mandatory reporting is just for the serious ADRs and MDIs. However, through a voluntary process, we can report anything. So they wanted to make a generic form that could capture both the MDIs and the medical device problems, the less severe ones. So if you do see medical device problem form, it is the correct form. It's just trying to capture the MDI as well as some of the voluntary reporting as well. So please don't be confused if you go on there. A little bit of talking about support for reporting. We appreciate the frontline staff is very busy and they don't have a lot of time to be sitting down filling out multiple reports. So we're trying to streamline this to make it as easy as possible. we are going to have dedicated resources to help with this reporting process. And so what we ask is, if on the front end, when you're filling in the report, to get as much information as you can, but that might not be available to everyone on the front line, specifically things like serial numbers for devices or drug identification numbers, that sort of thing. And so what we're going to do is we have a coordinator that will be able to review all of the reports once they are submitted by the frontline user, and they can check them for completeness and accuracy. They can contact the reporter if we need to ask more questions, or we can loop into other content experts such as pharmacy or clinical engineering or material management to be able to get those serial numbers or other identification numbers that are mandatory for Health Canada, but that frontline staff may not have. What we're really asking frontline staff to put in is the things that are readily available within the chart, so that you're not having to spend too much time with this. Other provinces that have been working on this for a bit have been able to streamline the process to get the reporting time, around 5-8 minutes. We're hoping that we can match that so that we're not taking up too much time for frontline staff. The other thing the coordinator will do is they will be the one that submits the report to Health Canada, and they will be the point of contact if Health Canada has any follow-up. So again, we don't want Health Canada trying to chase down frontline employees. The frontline employees have far more important things to do with regards to patient care. So we're going to have Health Canada or contact the coordinator, who can then reach out for follow-up to the content experts as needs be. So that's the reporting structure as we've launched it for today. So obviously there's going to be a lot of trial and error. We're going to see how this works. But moving forward, we're going to continue to review and refine this current process. We want to, again, make it as efficient as possible for the reporting. We don't want this to negatively impact the frontline staff at all, or physicians. So we will be looking at, potentially revising forms, reassessing what kind of support requirements we need, and then making sure that we assemble a team of content experts moving forward, so that each former region or each current area can have some content experts that we can reach out to help get some of this specific information. We're not there just yet, but that's our goal to be at. At this time, to ensure that these reports are getting done completely, we are going to be asking for people to work in teamwork to help with this. So we may be asking, making reaches out to pharmacy and clinical engineering, and asking frontline staff to be patient with us while we are connecting these to make sure that we're getting all of the information that we need to be able to submit to Health Canada, so that we can have a complete report, so that they're able to take that information and apply it to making medication or the machines, devices safer for patients moving forward. All right, so that's really all we have for kind of the formal component of this. What I would hope to do now is just open the floor up for any questions that that there might be, and then hopefully we can get some dialogue. Going. So I'm
Mark,
just gonna stop sharing this for a second here.
Mark, can you hear me also? Mark, it's Paul. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
I just wanted to mention as well that kindly a few of my colleagues here in Ottawa joined me also from policy, from systems and operations. So open to fielding a couple extra or some questions as well on those ends. And if you wish also, if there aren't any questions, we could happily share some information from be interested in as well from our end, but thank you again.
Great, thanks. So I've muted everybody. If you're not asking a question, can I ask you to mute yourself from your side so we don't get too much feedback? And then if you do have any questions for myself or Paul, please just either ask them out loud, or you can type them into the chat.
Do you want to roll up?
But please do mute your line if you're not going to be asking a question.
Something different, but in the red than normal they are. Would you like that? I see.
All right, right, so do we have
I mean,
any
you can like
questions?
yourself, you can put it on.
Yeah, because she said that.
Hi, Carol. How are you doing? Oh, that's good. So I just wanted to let you know I went to the capital project.
All right, that didn't seem to work. So if there are questions, you can feel free to go into the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer them, or Paul can. Otherwise, that's the extent of what we have for this presentation. I'm going to bring up just a email address that if you do have any other questions that you want to ask, you can always email safetycenter@saskatoonhealthregion.ca, and those will get forwarded on to myself, and then we can answer them hopefully within a reasonable time frame. All right, so we have a question here. How is this being rolled out? How is this being rolled out to frontline workers that we reporting in brackets nurses? And so we are going to be having this go to the nurse educators. We just in the last week got the finalization for the link for reporting, and so we've been holding off mass presenting this information because we wanted to wait until we had the reporting structure. And so now that we have that, we are going to be providing information out to the frontline users through the clinical nurse educators. Moving forward, again, we're hoping to have this included into whether it's standard orientation or into safety talks, that sort of thing. We're going to be trying to get some more saturation of it. Right now, we're just in the real early stages of getting the information out, so you're going to see more and more coming out. I know for those of you that don't check your emails, again, we're going to try to get that information out through huddles and that sort of thing. There was an alert this morning, or not an alert, but a news brief sent out via email to everyone's Sask Health Authority email address, and so if you want to refer to that for more information, you can as well. I also have just another little question. The email address on your screen is correct. It's at saskatoonhealthregion.ca, not the Health Authority. I'm not sure why it's that email address, but it is still currently active, and we will get you. We will be able to respond to you if you do email that address. The next question I have is, will there be a region-wide policy to follow? So this actually falls under the safety, the current overscoping safety and accountability, I believe, policy that's provincially written. We will have provincial procedures written up pretty soon, as well as we will have some work standards or more specific reporting instructions come along with the procedures. The procedures are going to be fairly high level with regards to how this is provincially impacted, and then we're going to have the working standards for each individual reporting report, so MDIs and ADRs. So I'm hoping we can clean that up maybe by the end of this week. Definitely by early New Year, those will be up. Another question here. In the presentation, the term hospital is used. To clarify, does this include long-term care facilities? The answer to that is no. At this time, Health Canada has identified, I believe it's 57 hospitals within the Saskatchewan Health Authority, and these are all acute care hospitals. It does not include long-term care. At this time, I'm not sure if Health Canada is planning on including long-term care, but the rationale for it right now is many of these incidents will cause a resident from long-term care to present to the hospital, and that's when these should be noted and documented, and that's why at this time it's going to be the hospital's role to do it versus the long-term care facility. Paul, I got to unmute you, Paul, sorry. Once I do that, then let's see if Paul has any other information that he wants to share with regards to that specific question.
Mark, can you hear us?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to turn to my colleague, Jason Berg from our Policy Bureau. He's an associate director there.
Hi, yeah, I just thought I'd just to confirm that that's correct. That is the scope. We didn't scope in long-term care as to what is under the regulations in terms of the reporting facilities. It was something that was certainly considered in terms of broadening it out beyond hospitals. That was a big issue in terms of the consultations we had with stakeholders. For a variety of reasons, we didn't go that far, but we would continue to encourage reporting from those types of facilities. But it is correct that it's not, the regulations don't apply to long-term care as such.
Thank you. And then I wanted to note, and thank you, Terry, that it is still voluntary for long-term care. So if they are noticing it at the long-term care level, they can report it, but it's just not mandatory. Another question we have here: can this education be offered on our e-learning site? And notification sent to all SHA employees to complete. So for the procedure, that will be coming out with key messages video. That's you have to watch and go through the learning site and say yes that I have seen it, and so that will happen once we complete the procedure, which again hopefully will happen within the next few weeks. Another question I have here is units within a hospital that are under the long-term care umbrella. Those, because they are situated within the hospital, do count as hospital area and will be falling under the mandatory reporting structure. Again, Paul, is that correct?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yep, that's correct.
All right. All right. Another question is, how will we know that a report has been submitted so that we don't do multiple for the same issue? Will it become part of the patient's chart? The second part is no, it will not become part of the patient's chart. It's similar to safety reports, it will be housed elsewhere. The first portion of the question is a great question, one that I do not have an answer to right now. And that's something that we will work forward on with communication and our education, because we don't want more than one person doing the same report. And again, this is where we, in the short term, ask for teamwork, communication through the frontline staff, so that if the first person that does notice it, if they can share with their staff and colleagues that they have been the one to submit the report. I mean, at the end of it, if we have more than one reporter submitting it, it's not going to be there will be no negative to it, other than it's just going to be rework, which isn't necessary. So at this stage, while we're still figuring out some of these finer details of sort of closing the loop and feedback, if we could ask just everyone to try to communicate as well best as they can with their team, and have someone, that first person that documents it sort of take the lead about getting the report done and just communicating that was completed. All right. I don't know. That's all I have for questions on chat. I'll give another minute or so.
Mark?
Yes.
Mark, just would add as well, just about how will you know if your reports have come in, and this might just be back to Saskatchewan Health Authority, but
Yeah, I can jump in. Hi.
Turn to my colleague,
Yeah.
Sorry, from our systems group, Jacinth Conton.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jacinth, and I've been working on mandatory reporting and how hospitals and health authorities submit information to Health Canada. So I'm very happy to see the progress you've made. That form looks fantastic. So I am curious how this information will be submitted to Health Canada, and it seems that you guys are still working that out. In terms of reference numbers, I wanted to maybe take an opportunity to clarify how that would be provided. So if you're using online forms, so we have, as of today, posted hospital forms. So for one online form for ADRs and one for MDIs. And so people can go and submit directly. So when you use the online form, you fill it out, submit it, and an automatic acknowledgement message is provided along with a reference number. And then that's a number to reference if you're sending follow-up information to Health Canada. It's all associated to that one report. There's also an opportunity on the online form to provide an internal submitter number. So that would be a number from your record that you could use to situate that report. However, it seems that if you're using a system and some kind of centralized mechanism with a form, you might be considering the secure file transfer protocol to submit information to Health Canada. If I can elaborate on that just quickly, it would require an enrollment process where you submit a request through the Canada Vigilance Program. And then we have some formalities with forms to be signed, and then information can be exchanged securely electronically. So either single submissions or batch submission with formats such as PDF, Excel, and XML directly to Health Canada. So that's something we do on a collaborative one-on-one basis, but it starts with the enrollment request. So I kind of just wanted to put that information forward. That might complement what you just said, and let me know if you have any other questions.
Great, thank you so much. And yeah, I know our team is working on the very early processes of doing the secure file transfer. That is our goal moving forward, and I think the platform that we have right now will enable us to do that. So once we're able to get through that process, hopefully we'll be able to do the secure transfer as soon as possible. I have one more question here. If someone happens to print a report, where will it be sent? The way I'm going to interpret this question is if they print off the Health Canada form and fill it out pen and paper, then what we're going to ask you to be doing is scanning it and emailing it to the Safety Center email account that I showed earlier, so that we can have it and our coordinator can have it, and then we can enter it into the form, the online form. Because right now our goal is to have everything go electronically into the online form so that we can capture the data, we can check for its completion and appropriateness, and then we can also make sure that we're sending it to Health Canada appropriately within the appropriate times. That's something I should note, that you can currently go on to the Health or Canada Vigilance and fill out the form and submit it on your own. We're really requesting that nobody does that. We want you to go through the SHA process for this, just so that we can be aware that this was sent and make sure that it is complete. The other part of that question was if Health Records is aware if they find one embedded in the charts. Actually, that's a really great question. We have not included Health Records in the conversations yet. That's something that we will absolutely be doing moving forward. Again, up until today's date, we were working on really the front end, getting the reporting up so that we would meet the requirements to comply with the mandatory reporting. Now we're going to be doing a lot of work on the back end to make sure that we're cleaning up these processes so that it's running as smooth and efficiently as possible, and we're getting things as complete as possible. All right. If there's nothing else, I think we'll sign off. Again, I'd really like to take this time to thank everyone in Health Canada that's been helping out with us, especially Paul and Lisa. I'd like to take the time to really thank the working groups that have been working incredibly hard on getting this set up. We've used a lot of different resources throughout the Health Authority, and we couldn't have done it without a great team effort. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to email that site I had up. And one more thing, this is being recorded, so we will have this up on the Internet Quality and Safety page as soon as possible. And then we'll probably have a blurb out to let people know that it's up there so that they can listen when they need to. All right, thanks again, and everyone have a great rest of their day.